Ladies and gentlemen, the man you are about to meet is the author of Hot Commodities, Adventure Capitalist, The Ultimate Road Trip, Investment Biker, Around the World with Jim Rogers. Recently, A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life and Investing. He is not only known as a legendary investor, but he is considered the Indiana Jones of finance. But in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, he is the Jonathan Livingston Seagull of finance and investing, because he chooses to fly in rarefied terrain and not follow the flock. This encompasses most of his life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to its rainmaking time, Jim Rogers. Welcome to
I'm delighted to be here. Let's make some rain.
Let's make some rain. Well, the first thing I wanted to tell you was that I read both of your books, 2 of the 5, A Bull in China and Hot Commodities. And the first thing I wanted to do was to go into Hot Commodities quickly with you, because it was so startling that most of the world could miss all of the opportunities, an entire industrial complex of how the world works. And one of the things that made you so fascinated was commodities. How could most of the world misunderstand the world of things?
Well, there were a couple of reasons. First, I should say, periodically, the world has been most enamored of things, commodities, but whenever there's a bull market, they get very interested. It's like anything else. When there's a bull market in real estate, people are interested. When there's a bull market in shipping, people are interested. But commodities went into a bear market in the 80s and 90s, and so most people forgot about them, ignored them. Wall Street firms used to make about 30% of their income from commodities in the 70s. The bull market came, and so they closed down. All sorts of stories arose about how you always lose money in commodities, etc. So when commodities are hot, people get interested. But I like to find things that are not hot. I like to find things that are depressed and ignored. I often look at such things, and if I find changes taking place, I find opportunities, and I try to capitalize on those opportunities. That's what happened again with commodities at the end of the 1990s.
You talked about in Hot Commodities that most people cannot detect a bull market when it's coming. Why is that?
Well, usually because things are depressed and quote, everybody knows that's a bad investment, whatever the investment happens to be. And so they ignore it. They leave it alone, and they don't even bother to look because, quote, everybody knows you lose money if you invest in that field. They don't see the changes that are taking place. Most people wait until prices are going up before they start looking at something. And usually things have to go up quite a lot before people get interested. Of course, then it's getting later in the day, but unfortunately, that's the way the world has always worked. I don't like it, but I learned that early on in the investment business, and so I learned that I should be looking at things where, quote, everybody knows it's a terrible investment.
You see the world from the ground up, which is why you took this motorcycle trip of grand and galactic proportion, to give you access to this reality that most people are not interested in accessing and wouldn't take the time, the energy, and the money to do. Obviously, you're very passionate. I've listened to practically every online interview that's ever showed up there, read these books from cover to cover, and it seems like your basic business, part of it is opportunity identification. Would you say that?
Well, again, you could put it that way. I like that turn of phrase. First, I should say to you, I went around the world on a motorcycle because I've always wanted to seek adventure, and I've always wanted to see the world. I was not specifically looking for investment ideas. Now, the nature of who I am and my background is such that if I see opportunities, clearly I'm going to do something. I'm not just going to keep riding and say, wasn't that interesting? So whenever I would come across something, it doesn't matter whether I'm traveling around the world seeking adventure or walking down the street. If I see something that looks like an opportunity, then I try to do some more and perhaps take advantage of it.
But it seems like the thread that ties everything together in the whole gestalt of your life, Jim, is that you are fascinated with the interconnectedness and the systemic workability of everything, how something can happen in one part of the world in one industry and be impacting life in another part of the world. And you've had this fascination, as you say, like a three-dimensional puzzle of trying to figure it out. Is that true?
Well, that's one of the fascinating things about life, the world, the investment world especially. It's always changing. It's a four-dimensional puzzle when you throw in time as well. You know, three dimensions are complicated enough, but then with much of the world, there's time, because things are always changing. Even if you figure out the three-dimensional puzzle, oh my gosh, now it's a day later or a month later, and things have changed. So you have to start over again. But that's what makes life so fascinating. That's what makes investing so fascinating. And certainly when I go around the world, whatever I'm doing, if I see something, I try to put the pieces together to see what caused it and what's going to happen next.
You sound like you're running. Are you taking a jog?
I'm on my bicycle.
Incredible.
Actually.
Talk about multitasking.
I'm just working out while I'm trying to do two birds in one stone.
Oh my God. I was going to say. I'm
having a heart attack. You'll be the second to know.
I was going to say, I'm the one who should be nervous and breathing heavily, not you.
No, it's just a simple bicycle. Don't worry.
Okay, very good. I love the part in Hot Commodities, how I want to go back to this because this to me is such a primer and an eye-opener. Aside from a bull in China, which totally awakened me to China and all the mistruths I've ingested in others about China, the fear of China, the foreignness of it, you really articulated and really brought it into a full living color texture of opportunity. I've never seen a country translated so vividly. I could feel it booming in the book. But in Hot Commodities, I really want you to talk about, just spend a couple of minutes about what you saw as a missing opportunity that made you form an index, the Rogers International Commodities Index. What happened?
I saw the commodities had been in a long bear market. I saw that the prices were very cheap historically because everybody had ignored them. I saw that nobody had been investing capacity for commodities for about 2 decades. And I saw the demand was continuing to grow. I mean, after all, I'd been around the world, and I could see what was happening out there in the world. So I said, well, it's time to invest in commodities again, after doing some more research and homework. So what I would do was invest in a commodities index, because index investing has been proven repeatedly being the way to invest. And at that time, I was about to head off around the world again for 3 years on my second trip, and so I wasn't going to be able to sit and really focus too much on any kind of investing. So I said, well, I'll just put the index fund, put my money in the index fund, and off I'll go. Well, I did my homework, and I found that there was no decent index for commodities, which made me even more optimistic about commodities, because when I realized this index was so ignored and forgotten, there wasn't even a good index to put my money into commodities in an index fund. The only way I could do it was to start my own index. I would not put any of my money into any of the existing indexes, commodity indexes, at that time.
When you said there wasn't a good index, explain it, though. Why? What was not working in the indexes that you saw that you thought were shoddy or just ineffective?
Well, one of the existing indexes was by Goldman Sachs. I told them this, so I'm not speaking out behind their back. But I looked at it, and it was about 65 or 70% oil. I said, what kind of index is that? But more importantly, I found that it changes very dramatically every 2 or 3 years. They change it depending on what goes up in price. Well, I mean, that's not the way I invest. Mother invests that way. She likes to buy something after it goes